You are doing everything right. Avoiding bad debt, living on less than you earn, saving and investing for your future. You are checking all the right boxes. And yet money still feels heavy, like a chore, like something you have to manage, not something that's working for you. Maybe you feel guilty every single time you spend, even on things that you can actually afford. Maybe you feel scared about making a mistake, so you avoid making any decisions at all. Or maybe you just feel unsure, like you should be further along than you are right now. Like everybody else has it figured out and you're the one who is still just guessing. If any of that sounds familiar, this video is for you. Because here's what I've learned from over a decade of sitting across the table from high earners here in Hawaii. The most costly financial mistakes that most people make do not come from a bad investment pick or an unnecessary purchase or overspending on groceries. They come from unexamined money beliefs that quietly shape every single decision, but from the background. Your money mindset affects everything, not just the big decisions, the daily ones, the ones that you make without thinking. Today, I want to show you 3 of the most common traps, the ones stealing wealth from smart, successful local people every single day. And the question that I want you to hold through this entire video is simple. It's the point of all this. Is this behavior actually serving the life that I am trying to build? If we've never met before, my name is Ethan Ho, certified financial planner and founder of C.L.E.A.R Capital Partners here in Hawaii. I've spent over a decade doing financial planning with high earners and families here. And I want to say upfront that none of what I'm about to share is judgment here. I live inside these patterns too, every single one of them. This is just an honest conversation about the invisible things that quietly shape our financial lives. If that sounds useful, I would appreciate it if you hit subscribe and follow along. All right, let's get into it. Before getting into the 3 traps, I want to give you a frame for thinking about all of them. Everybody sees and interacts with money through their own lens. That lens is shaped by your experiences, how money is talked about in your home or not talked about, whether there was enough or not enough, the messages that you absorbed about what money means or what it means about you, what you have to do to get it, what happens when you lose it. None of that is your fault. And most of it happened before you had any say. The lens is not the problem. The unexamined lens is. There's an old story about a fish. An older fish swims by 2 younger fish and says, "How's the water today?" The young fish look at each other and they say, "What is water?" That is what a unexamined money lens feels like from the inside. You do not see it because you've never been outside of it. It just feels like reality. And when the lens goes unexamined, you begin to make decisions that may have made sense at one point in your life, but does not actually serve where you are at right now. The first trap is a unexamined money story. And so here's the most useful way that I know to find yours. Don't start with the experience, but start with the behavior. Look at the way that you actually handle money and then find the thing that doesn't quite make sense. The pattern that's hard to explain rationally. Let me give you some examples. Some people avoid credit cards like they're dangerous weapons and just won't touch them, even when they have the discipline and the income to use them responsibly and capture the rewards, while others cannot stop abusing them. Every month a new balance, every month the same cycle, even though they know better. Some people chase that guaranteed or risk-free return and won't put their money anywhere else. So that CDs, savings accounts, cash sitting and checking, losing purchasing power every single year, even when their timeline is long and they could afford to take real risks. Others might do the opposite, chasing short-term volatility like it's gambling. Crypto plays, meme stocks, the hot stock tip, drawn to the potential of a massive return even though the odds are clearly against them. Some people need to keep 100 grand in cash always. No matter how much they earn, no matter how much opportunity cost that cash is quietly generating every single year. It just feels wrong to let it go below that number. Some people will give and gift in excess, beyond what is sustainable, beyond what makes financial sense. Because saying no to someone they love feels like more than withdrawing just money. Some people are so focused on price they lose sight of value entirely. Driving across town just to save $3 or buying the cheapest version of everything, even though paying more would improve their life and potentially even lead to less costs. None of these behaviors are random and every single one of them has a story underneath it. Maybe the person keeping $100,000 in cash grew up with not enough. The cash feels like safety, even though it's quietly costing them thousands of dollars a year in opportunity costs and ultimately security security down the road. Maybe the person who is giving and gifting in excess learned early that love is expressed through money, that taking care of people financially is how you show you care. And maybe the person who learned to measure price, not value, has a story where it shows them that money is scarce and spending is dangerous. Even decades later, even with a full bank account, that scarcity feeling never left. Same pattern everywhere. The behavior makes complete sense when you understand the story underneath it, until you examine the story and whether it is still true. Let me show you what this costs when it goes unexamined. I recently had a conversation with someone who was exploring working together. She is 75 years old, sharp, thoughtful, and genuinely good with money in many ways. In 2008, she got hit badly in the market and lost a significant portion of her assets. And she made a decision, never again. She pulled back from the market entirely, and for the next 18 years, she stayed out. Now she's looking at retirement, and what she is confronting is not just the loss from 2008. It is 18 years of sitting out of one of the longest and most historic bull markets we've ever seen. The initial loss was painful, but the real cost is the 18 years of growth that never happened. That is what an unexamined money story can cost. Not just one bad decision, but the compounding effect of every decision after it. And I want to be clear that financial trauma is real, and the responses that it produces is not always the same. Sometimes it produces the opposite: recklessness, chasing, taking too much risk because scarcity has you feeling like you always need to be grabbing for more. I have seen the same experience or similar experience shape two completely different outcomes from the same family. Two people, same household, same scarcity growing up. One becomes a super saver, responsible, disciplined, money equals safety. The other became a super spender. Money burns a hole in their pocket as soon as it arrives. Same experience and completely opposite behaviors. Because the behavior is not determined by what happened to you, the behavior is determined by how you interpret what happened to you. And most people never examine that interpretation, it just becomes who they are. So here's the practice that I want to offer. Find the behavior in your life that does not quite make sense, the one that you can't really explain rationally. Try to trace it back. What experience shaped it, and then what did you decide about money in that moment? And then ask the question that changes everything. Does this behavior still serve the life that I am trying to build? The second trap. When you start making real money, something interesting happens. The pressure to look successful becomes real, and in Hawaii, we know exactly what this looks like. The lifted Tacoma, the house in the neighborhood that stretches the budget, the private school tuition that nobody talks about out loud, but everybody knows what it is. None of those are wrong until they are running your life without enhancing it. And this trap is particularly expensive in certain professions where you are expected to look a certain way. Drive a certain car, live in a certain neighborhood, the lifestyle becomes part of the job description. And I want to be honest with you here because I live inside this trap too. I have peers making 7 figures annually, and that's honestly where I want to be. That is the income goal that I am building towards. And there are moments where I feel that comparison, where that gap between where I am and where they are feels bigger than it should. But here's what I come back to. I've chosen to build something slowly, at my own pace, something that is true to who I am and something that I can enjoy building. I choose to be present for my young kids during years I know I'm never gonna get back. I choose intention over speed, and when I remind myself of that, that comparison loses its grip, because the comparison was never really about money. Whether I am doing enough, whether I am enough. I have worked with people who are genuinely wealthy, in the top 1% of earners, and objectively wealthy by every standard, yet they still feel behind. They still feel the pull to upgrade the car, the house, the lifestyle, not because they need any of it, but because the goalpost keeps moving. And the goalpost keeps moving because they never defined enough. Here's why this matters beyond the philosophy. Every single day you make 2 reoccurring financial decisions. Do I save this money or do I spend it? Those 2 decisions made consistently over decades determine almost everything about what your financial life looks like. And without having defined what is enough for you, how could you possibly know what answer is right in any given moment? Saving and spending are both necessary and both are important. But without clarity around enough, Most people will save anxiously without knowing what they are saving towards, or spend guiltily without knowing whether they can really afford to. Neither of those is peace. Let me show you what it looks like when someone actually defines enough. I have a client I just met with who ranks their return on life a 10 out of 10. They work, but not for money. They work because they genuinely enjoy it. They travel the globe when they want and how they want. Small purchases do not register as decisions, they just make them without guilt, without hesitation. And they sleep well at night knowing that they have a plan in place for the things that could actually hurt them. That is not luck. That is what enough looks like when it has been clearly defined and built towards intentionally. And it doesn't only show up in big ways. I met with another client recently who decided to move 2 miles down the road to a new apartment with better amenities. It cost a little bit more. There's going to be an overlap in the lease, but they made that decision without anxiety, without guilt, and without a spreadsheet, because they knew that it would not derail their long-term goals and it would improve their quality of life right now. That clarity, that ability to make a Tuesday afternoon decision with peace, that is what defining enough actually gives you. Here's the truth that we are sitting with. Everyone can see your house, everyone can see your car, nobody can see your brokerage account, nobody can see your freedom, nobody can see the options that you built. The most financially powerful position is often the least visible one, and it is almost always the one that creates the most peace. So the question here is not how much do you have, but what does enough actually look like for you? Not for your peer group, not for your profession, not for the version of success that you absorbed from somewhere else. For you specifically. The third trap is the one that I see most consistently and is probably the quietest of all three. Nobody's actually thought about this, especially accumulators, those who are head down earning, building, saving, investing, doing all the right things. The goal has always been more income, more savings, more assets, but more towards what? What does life on the other side of this building actually look like? What does money need to do for you specifically? Not in the abstract, not in the someday, but what does it need to do now and later? Most people cannot answer that question clearly. Not because they are not smart, but because nobody ever asked them. Nobody gave them the space to think about it. And they've been too busy running to stop and ask themselves. Let me tell you about somebody I know well. Working in tech, good income. By every external measure, they were successful, but something wasn't sitting right. But over time, they got clear. Not overnight, it took real examination, reading books, journaling, putting in the work. Real honesty about what actually mattered to them. What they discovered was that their passion was photography, that what they actually wanted was creative work, their own time with their own direction. So they built a plan, not a leap of faith, but a plan. They built a financial runway so that when they made the transition, there was no money panic, no desperation, no taking bad work just to cover the bills. They made the move. They stepped back in income temporarily and built a photography business that gave them control over their time. The ability to move to a place they actually wanted to be and the freedom to focus on what mattered most. They did that themselves with real clarity about what they want and the courage to build towards it. That story is not about leaving tech for photography. It's about what becomes possible when you actually get clear on what you are building towards. And here's the thing about clarity that most people miss. It does not just change your life decisions, it changes your financial decisions. When you know what you are building towards, every financial choice becomes easier. Where to save, where to invest, what to spend on, what to stop spending on, what risk is worth taking, what risk is not. Money becomes a tool pointed at something specific instead of something you just are accumulating, hoping that it's going to add up to something good someday. Here's what I want to leave you with. These three traps are normal. They are human. An unexamined money story that no longer serves you, the pressure to make success visible in a way that quietly takes more than it adds. I think every one of us lives in at least one of these. The goal is not to be free of them. The goal is to be able to see them clear enough so they don't make decisions for you. Because here's the truth that I keep coming back to with almost every client I work with. The most financially rewarding thing that most people can do is not find a better investment. It is to examine what is driving the decisions that they are already making, addressing the beliefs, the behaviors, the triggers, the fears, and then building a plan and a system that actually reflects what matters most to them. If any of these three hit home for you, lean into that. That discomfort is information and it is pointing at something worth examining. If you found this useful, hit subscribe. I keep putting out Hawaii-specific content about building real wealth in one of the most unique and beautiful places to live. And if you want to have a real conversation about your money mindset and your financial picture and what a plan that actually reflects your life looks like, this is the exact type of conversation that we welcome here at C.L.E.A.R Capital Partners. Head to CLEARcapitalpartners.com, linked in the description, and schedule a discovery call. And I'll see you in the next video.